Welcome to church. How are you feeling today? Did you know a blizzard was coming today? I did not, but I'm glad you made it here because probably no one's coming to the next one. But welcome, we're glad to have you. If you're new, man, we're honored to have you here at X Church. You kind of came, I think, on a great weekend because we're beginning a brand new conversation for the next 4 weeks. And the title of this series is How to Think About Money. Now, here's what I know is true for all of us because it's true for me, and that is that we think about money a lot, don't we? Let's be honest. We think about money all the time. It's kind of always on our mind, and yet, here's the thing I was thinking about. Even though we think about money all the time, it doesn't always mean that we think the right thoughts about money. For example, I think about a lot of things, but don't always do the right thing. I think about food a lot. Anybody else here think about food a lot? Hello? It doesn't mean I have the best diet in the world, to be honest with you. You feel it? I think about golf a lot. Doesn't mean I'm a good golfer. Tommy is, I'm not, all right? Like we need to recognize something. Just because we think about something often doesn't mean we always think the right thoughts about it. And when it comes to money, I found that depending on where we're in life, it probably lends to us thinking about it more often than maybe some others. Like when you don't have enough of it, you think about it all the time. How are we gonna pay the bills? How are we gonna get this, right? And can we just say, on the other side, when you have a lot of it, you also think about it all the time because you're always trying to manage it. You wanna make sure that it's in the right places. You're doing things with it right, you should be. And so the reality is that we think about money all the time. And so what I wanna do for the next 4 weeks is I want us to peel back some of the layers in our mental makeup when it comes to money, because what I've discovered in my own life, maybe some of you have discovered this, is that I sometimes have some unhealthy mindsets. I have been influenced by all these different external factors that have affected how I think about money. For example, and for all of us, the people you hang out with will affect how you think about money. You hang out with people that are out spending money all the time, getting new stuff, always shopping. Guess what you're likely to do? Same thing, right? So the people you're around can affect the way you think about money. The church you grow up in can affect how you think about money because church can have a significant influence. And not every church communicates the same thing about money. And so some of you can think of like, listen, I'll just own this. The church environment I grew up in, there was this belief, it was kind of a collective belief. No one ever said it, but it was this ideal that the poorer you were, the holier you were. And so everybody would try to outbroke each other. You know what I mean? My car's 13 years old and only got 3 wheels. Take that. You know what I mean? It's just like this mentality. It just existed in that environment. Our culture affects us. Like what we see on media, social media, in fact, I think it has affected the youngest generation more than any of us. What we see constantly informs how we think about money. Another one is how you're raised, right? Like I grew up in a family. My dad was a pastor of a small church. We did not have a lot of money. We were taken care of, but we didn't have a ton of money. And so my parents never bought brand name stuff. Anybody else grow up like that? It was like, we never had Nike, we didn't have Adidas, you'd have some, off the wall brand, whatever, shoes and clothes and food. We never brought brand name food. In fact, one of the things I remember so vividly the moment I moved out of our house was I decided that I was gonna buy some good cereal. Anybody else grow up where your parents never bought good cereal? Hello, Like in our house, we never bought the good cereal, you know what I mean? The ones that actually taste good. Like, I feel like the staple in our home was shredded wheat. And y'all, anybody remember shredded wheat? Raise your hand if you all remember it. Like, I'm not talking about the frosted mini wheats. No, put your hand down if you raise your hand if that was it. No, I'm talking about like that, like somebody just went out and harvested wheat and then they just put it into a combine and out came this fibrous log that has zero flavor, and we would put it in a bowl and drown it in milk and then cover it in sugar just so we could get it down. That was my childhood. Hello, anybody else? Yeah, I see some other people. You know what? I'm preaching now. That's the first time y'all. Amen. How you were raised affects how you think about money. What your parents modeled affects how you think about money. My parents tell us the story of when they first got married. When they first got married, my dad came from, I would say, pretty humble circumstance. Like his family did not have a lot of money, lived kind of in inner city of Baltimore, Maryland. And my mom, she actually came from a somewhat affluent, well-to-do family. And so when they got married, and now they find themselves on their own and they were young, they bought their first home. It was a real small home. I think it was like $12,000 or something back then, you know. And they buy this little home, and they need to buy some furniture. They don't have any bedroom furniture. They don't have any couches. They don't have any of this. And so my mom's like, we need to go shopping. We need to furnish this house. It was a small house, but we need to furnish it. And my dad looked at her, and he said, okay, I've got $400. And she was like, we can't furnish the house for $400. And then thankfully, her parents gave them a little bit of money to buy a bedroom suit. And but she didn't understand this. She was like, we can't buy all this stuff for $400, and they gave us a few hundred. Like, we can't do that. And my dad said, but that's all we have. And she said, well, yeah, but we have this like credit card. So like we could just go buy this stuff and then just pay on it. And my dad said, no, that's not what we're doing. This is how much money we have. And so at that very first moment in their marriage, they made the decision that they were not going to go into debt to buy things that they could not afford. So they went to Goodwill and they went other places and they outfit their house. And the reason why I'm so grateful that my parents modeled that, I'm so grateful that their story looked like that, is because I realize today that their story affects my story. And here's what I want you to know. Your story will affect your kid's story and will affect your grandchildren's story. And that's why it matters that we understand how to have a healthy mindset when it comes to talking about money. There was actually a book that inspired the angle, the approach that we're gonna take for the next 4 weeks that I wanted to just point out. It's a book that was recommended to me by another pastor, and so it's one of the best books he'd ever read on money. And it is not a faith-based book. I don't even know if the author's a Christian or anything like that, but it's called The Psychology of Money. And it so impacted me because it was such a nuanced approach to talking about money that I've never heard, that it affected me. And I'm really careful about recommending books, but when it comes to finances, this is a book I would recommend. I would encourage you get out your phone, you scan it, you can go buy it. We have it in the app where you can link to it. But what spoke to me about this book, The Psychology of Money, was this thought that the author had. And that is, he said, it's not that most people don't know what to do with their money. Most people, I think kind of generally speaking, even if you're maybe not an expert, maybe you've made a lot of bad decisions, but I think generally speaking, most of us know enough about money. In other words, we know, even if we don't do this, we shouldn't spend more than we make. I think most of us know that, right? I think most of us know that it is important to save money. I think most of us know that it's probably wise to invest money for the future. I think most of us know that. The problem isn't that we need more information. The problem is our behavior with money gets us into trouble. And that's why it's important that we peel back some of the layers of how we've been raised or the way we've gone through life and the things we've experienced, and we kind of try to get to the core of what we believe when it comes to money and finances. And so I would highly recommend this book. In fact, as we begin this series, I'm just curious, is there anybody here today just brave enough that you would say, I recognize that sometimes my behavior with money is not always the best. Is there anybody here? Raise your hand. Anybody? Anybody love a book? Anybody love a book? Who wants a book? Who wants a book? Who wants a book? What? Who was that? All right. People are passing stuff out of this church. I felt like I need to pass something out, I guess. Throw a book out there. And so I want to talk about this. It's going to be a little bit of a different type of series. And before we dive into today, what I want to do for just a moment is I want to address the all too familiar tension that sometimes exists in some of us whenever the church talks about money. Because I know maybe some of you, it's like your first weekend here and like, oh, let's go visit that church. And you show up and you go, oh crap, they're talking about money. What do we do? And some of you, I just know that just the idea that we're going to talk about money might make you a little bit uncomfortable. And I recognize that there are some people in the past in history of the church that have abused and done stuff that would give us a reason to be skeptical at times. I understand that. But I want to just speak to, if I can just be kind of direct about kind of the negativity that sometimes comes, and sometimes we hear in this when it's like, the church, church just wants your money. Church talks about money because they just want you to give more. Let me just address that first. One thing I learned a long time ago is that God is the provider for this church, not you guys. God's our provider. And I had to learn that because a long time I would be real cautious to say anything that I felt like maybe needs to be said because I don't want to offend people. And God just spoke to me one time. He's like, Tim, are you trusting them or are you trusting me? And while we need the general collectivity, or the kind of general the generosity and the collective people who come together and give to the work, while that is important, here's what I also know. God can resource his church from outside the church. God can bring in resources that we need in a moment that has nothing to do with not a single person inside the church. And so when I finally got that, I got the courage to go, I think I'm just gonna be bold and actually talk about money. And people get upset at times, but I've discovered over the years, I've been doing this long enough, I discovered the only people who ever complain and grumble and get mad when a church talks about money are the people who aren't giving to the church. That's what I found out. The only people who get upset are the people who want a church to go to and bring their kids and have a safe environment where a church pays for a police officer and has a safety team, and they provide snacks and crafts and all kinds of stuff to help their kids come to know Jesus, in a middle school and high school program that has student leaders who actually get in the trenches with them and provide maybe the only positive environment where their students aren't actually pulled away to do the wrong thing in the world around them, or maybe having a beautiful space with heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer, and they want to come into a nice, beautiful place that entertains them on Sunday. And then I just realized one day, why do I care if I offend them? So I'm sorry if I just offended you and you're really mad. Just one thought, I would not get up and walk out right now. It just looks bad. Wait about 10 minutes and then leave. That's what I would do. I just want you to really understand that I really do trust in God, and I really do want for the people of this church to have a healthy view of money. I want the people of this church to understand God's heart for them. And oh, by the way, Jesus talked about money and material stuff more than any other subject. And so I thought to myself, if Jesus knows it's important, then maybe as a pastor that's spiritual malpractice for me to not talk about it. And the reason why we want so much for you is because I want you to live the life that God's created you to live. And we want to help you. And so in about a month and a half, we're gonna have an experience that we do at least once a year called Financial Freedom. It's a workshop that you'll hear more and more about it, but I would just encourage you, if you are through this series, even go, I realize I need to get the right mindset and I need to make some changes in my behavior. I just wanna encourage you, we wanna help you. We have people who volunteer their time, they're financial experts that wanna get in the trenches and actually help you turn your life around when it comes to finances, okay? So with that being said, let's just kind of start at the core today. I wanna talk about our primary motivation or our drive for money. Because at least in our culture, and I know this to be true, and I have to deal with this in America, there is this never-ending motivation inside of us for more. Like I gotta figure out how to get more. I wanna make more. What can I do to, and I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying, let's actually ask why. What is the motivator inside of us? In fact, there's a question that I really want us to wrestle with deeply today. And I want you to kind of think, because again, we can't do a book. Book talks about the psychology of money. So let's dig into the psychology and our psyche when it comes to money. I want us to wrestle with this question. And I want you to answer out loud. I just want you to think about it for a moment. And that is, can money buy happiness? I just want you to internalize that question for a moment. Because what I don't want you to do, especially if you've been around church for a while, is I don't want you to react with this hyper-spiritual religious rhetoric. Because I think sometimes that's what we do, and it's almost like, depending on how you were raised in the church environment, our first reaction is, no, money doesn't buy happiness. And around the church, I've heard all kinds of, cliches, religious garbage, if I could say it that way. Have you ever heard this one? This one I used to hear. God's not interested in your happiness, he's just interested in your holiness. Anybody ever hear that one? For God's not interested in your happiness, he just cares about your holiness. Can I ask a question? Why in the world would we create a false dichotomy out of happiness and holiness? Like it's one or the other. If it's one or the other, God wants you to be holy over being happy. Yeah. Why isn't it that God might want us to be both holy and happy? Is that okay to say? Kind of feels like you guys are a little bit unsure about where we're going with this. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Tyler. I don't know, Jesus' most famous sermon ever, he begins over and over by talking about how to experience a happy or a blessed life. Maybe we shouldn't make a false dichotomy out of that. Or sometimes I hear this is like religious or Christian wordsmithing. I hear people say, well, happiness is temporal, but joy's eternal. Oh, I know, it's so cute, isn't it? But in reality, are we just kind of are we just trying to separate this kind of cultural expectation of happiness and joy? I think it's like we're being so clever that we're missing the point. I don't think you need to kind of separate happiness and joy. I don't think you need to kind of do all of that. I think the whole idea is that you can experience a full life. And I think you can experience it now and forever. And so I don't even want to kind of create that dichotomy as well. Here's what I was thinking about. Because I really did kind of pause and think about this question. Can money buy happiness? I think a lot of people who don't have it think so. When you don't have a lot of money, you tend to think having money will make me happier, right? And I can understand that, but perhaps that's why a lot of people buy lottery tickets. You do realize that the majority of the people who buy lottery tickets are actually the poorest people in our country. Why? Because I get it, it's like an opportunity, right? It's a gamble, but it's an opportunity that maybe I can hit it and then I'll be fulfilled and I'll be happy in life. I understand that. But here's what is interesting. Studies have kind of shown that there is some correlation between a level or a version of happiness and money. There's some correlation there. Let's just be honest about this, right? Having some money so that you can pay for a roof over your head and food on the table and making sure that your kids have something cared for, does that not alleviate some of the stress and anxiety and worry and frustration and fear that you live with? Absolutely. That'll go toward a happier life. So let's not act like that money doesn't, there's not some connection to happiness. The question though really is, does money buy us happiness? And I think if there's some correlation, I think we tend to kind of develop a belief system. Well, if a little bit of money, because it really does help, and I don't feel stressed, and I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to eat tomorrow, and all of those things can add to my happiness. Here's the belief that sometimes we build out of that, and that is this, that the more money you have, the happier you will be, right? If a little bit of money makes me a little bit happy, a lot more money will make me a lot happier. And so that's the belief, if I could just say, that a lot of us have grown up with. The more money you have, the happier you will be. The question is that really true? What I'd love to do is ask someone who had it all. I think the best person to answer this question is the person that maybe had mountains of money. I mean, if anybody can tell us, money buy happiness, it's somebody who was perhaps the wealthiest man to ever live, and his name is Solomon. Solomon lived about 3,000 years ago, and Solomon had more money, most experts and scholars say, when you take what he had, the scripture tells us, and you translate it to today's economy, it's insane. Like every year for tribute, he would have people that would give him gold, and it says that he would get 666 talents of gold, which should tell you something, that number right there, right? He would get all of this gold, which when experts take that amount, what a talent was worth, and weigh it out for today, it would be that he would receive about $1.6 billion in just tribute from outside. When people take and read through everything it says that he had acquired, it's estimated today that it would be worth over $2 trillion. So if you thought we were gonna talk about Elon Musk today, we're not. We're gonna talk about Solomon. And one of the things that we get from Solomon is toward the end of his life, he kind of writes a memoir. And one of the things you discover is that he was actually a guy who spent his entire life searching for happiness and meaning. And I want to look at his words in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. If you've got your Bible with you, let's turn there. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, starting in verse 1. Here's what Solomon said. I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. Here's what Solomon does. He's on a quest to find what it means to live a happy life. I want to find the good things in life. I want to experience what all the people who seem to be happy in life have. And so he says, I tried laughter. I tried to entertain myself. I scrolled TikTok videos for 4 hours a day. I tried to I thought, okay, if things make me laugh, then I'll just entertain myself. But he said, I kind of found out that didn't really last. Like it lasts for a moment and then it's gone again. It was fleeting. And then he said, I tried wine. Like, you can kind of get a sense he's miserable. And though he's in a position where his wisdom matters and his discretion matters and he's the king of this nation, he says, I decided to try wine because every time I see drunk people, they look really happy. And so he tries to medicate his vexed soul. And what he discovers is that it was foolishness. So he tries entertainment, he tries to medicate himself, and that doesn't work. So here's what he does. He tries to buy it. Look at verse 4 with me. He said this, I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any king who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and I had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. This dude, he buys mansions, builds them for himself. They have man caves. He's got more cars in the garage. He's got more money in the bank. He's paying for female companionship. I mean, literally, the guy is using his money to buy any form of pleasure, anything that would make him feel happy. That's what he tries to do. Look at, if you would, skip down to verse 10 and 11. Here's kind of what he resolved. He said this, anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure, and I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so what? Would you all say that word with me? It was all so, come on, let's say it again. It was all what? It was meaningless. He says it was like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Can you imagine this? Like Solomon has everything you could ever want, except he's not happy. This is the guy that we're asking the question to. Can money buy happiness? And most of us would only imagine or dream of what it would be like to have the kind of money he did. That's why we buy a lottery ticket. It's because, man, I can only imagine like how life would be so much better if I did this. And the way he resolved it, this is, again, the guy who's Mount Rushmore of money. He says, I discovered that it was actually meaningless. I was trying to catch something I could never grasp. I was chasing something over and over. I could never find it. So I think if we were to ask Solomon this question toward the end of his life, can money buy happiness? I think his answer would be no. I think that's probably a safe answer. Can money ultimately buy you real fulfillment and happiness in life? You'd probably say no. So that left me with this other question. If money can't buy happiness, what does it buy? Because all I know is that I use money to buy stuff all the time. So if money doesn't buy happiness, can I ask you a question? What does it buy? And I found the answer in verse 10. And you can look back if you want, but basically here's what Solomon said. He said, anything I wanted, I took. I got it. Anything I wanted to buy, I bought it. Any place I wanted to go, I went. Anything to my heart's desire that I wanted to do, I did it. In fact, he says, I denied myself no desire. And I realized money can't buy happiness. But then I had this thought. Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy freedom. It can buy freedom. Isn't that what Solomon said? I mean, I can do anything I want. I can buy anything I want. I can go anywhere I want. That sounds like somebody who's free. I know all of you are like this is what I love right now. All of you are like, I am really unsure where this is going. This does not sound like a typical message I'm gonna hear. Just stick with me. I have a good friend that has done very well in business. He has worked hard, built a business, has accumulated great wealth. And I will text him once every month or so. Like, let's get together. You wanna go do that? You wanna go do this, you know? And I'll just say this. More often than not, when I text him and I go, hey, are you free on Friday? You wanna go do this? You wanna go on this on Saturday? You wanna do this? He's never available. You know why he's never available? Because he's usually either sitting on a beach, or he's sitting on a boat, or he's playing some incredible golf course somewhere in our country, or he's taking some fun trip, or he's scaling a mountain, or he's doing something that most of us would go, that looks amazing. And that's when I realized one day, money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure buys freedom, right? Like when you have money, you can actually go do all kinds of stuff. You have the ability to go do things, which, listen, can I just say this? This, by the way, I think is one of the benefits of being a good steward of your money. Is because when you manage what you have well, and you work, I'm gonna say, this may not be worldwide, But let me just say, at least in our country, when you work really hard, you manage what you are given really well, when you make wise financial decisions, at some point in your life, you hope to get to a place where you're kind of free to go do some of the things that you actually want to do in this life. You know, can I just say, it's not a terrible thing to travel. Well, about 4 of you believe that. Is it bad to travel? I don't know, God made a pretty beautiful world. I'd actually like to see it. There are things that some of us would love to do. And here's the language that I've caught myself in a lot of times. Here's the language, can I just say, that sometimes we say, man, I wish I could, but we can't. I wish I had the money to go do that, but we just don't have it. Man, I would love to go on a vacation, but we just really can't. Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like somebody who doesn't actually have the freedom to go do some of the things they want to do. And I think we all probably resonate with that. But here's what I'm saying today, okay? Because I think a lot of you are really confused right now, and there's a lot of tension, and I love this. I just want you to hear me. Money isn't bad when it's in the right place. That's what I'm trying to say today. Money is not a bad thing. And the reason why I felt like I need to address this, because I don't know what environment you grew up in, household, church, environment, but the environment I grew up in, I almost kind of believed that having money was bad. But then I see all of the good that you can do in this world with money. And I'm kind of going, I don't know that money's bad. Like, when money is in the right place, I think money can actually be a tool to do a lot of good in this world, don't you? I think like you can take money and you could go dig wells in Africa for people who do not have water. You can take money and you can go help education initiatives that lift people out of poverty. With money, you can actually change people's lives. Money is not bad when it's in the right place. The problem is, and this is why I felt like I needed to just kind of dive in and try to kind of peel back some unhealthy layers of thinking about money, is that oftentimes, especially in the church culture, we demonize money. And I get it, and we'll talk more about it. Money can be a trap when it's not in the right place. Money can mess you up when it's not managed right. You can have a lot of stress and worry over money. I understand all of that, but I want us to at least kind of set a foundation to say this. Money is neutral. It's not good or bad. Okay? Like, you know, I sometimes religious people get this idea that it's like money is just the root of all evil, and I'm like, no. Loving money, the love of money more than you love people, that can lead to evil. Loving money more than you love God, that can lead to a whole lot of evil. Loving money more than you love serving God, that can mess you up. What I've discovered about money is it's neutral, right? What money does, now here's where we get at this. What money does is it actually exposes the motivation of our heart. That's what money does. And I want you to hear this. Our behavior with money exposes the pursuit and the motivation that's in our heart. That's all. It's not what money does. In fact, Jesus kind of said it this way in Matthew chapter 6:24. Here's what Jesus said. No one can serve two masters. For you will hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. He said this, famous sentence. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to what? Say it out loud, enslaved to? Woo. So if money can bring freedom, which I see that in life. People that have money tend to be free. They don't have to stay in jobs that they hate. They can do some of the things that they want to do. If money can bring freedom, then why is it that Jesus says that money can also lock you up? It can enslave you. That's what he said, right? In one sense, money can be the key to freedom, but in another sense, money can be the very key that locks you up. That's what Jesus said. If I could maybe take all of this and just put it into a couple phrases for us today, and I would encourage you to write these down using the app, okay? It's this truth. When money is your pursuit, it becomes your prison. I think that's what I'm getting from all this. When money is your pursuit, here's what Jesus would say, it becomes your prison. When all you want is more money, and because it's connected to what you really want, which is fulfilled life and happiness and all of these things, when that is your motivation, I've got to get more money at all costs. I just got to hold on to what I have. When money is your primary pursuit, how do I know if money is my primary pursuit? We'll talk more about that in weeks to come, but the easy way to do is to look at your behavior with money. When money is your pursuit, when you're pursuing money so that you can have happiness, Solomon and Jesus would tell you it's actually an illusion. By the way, Solomon, wealthiest man to ever live. Because of his money, he was the freest man to ever live. And he was also one of the most miserable to ever live. So money can bring freedom, but it doesn't mean you're free. Because you can be trapped when it's in the wrong place. And so here's the real thing I would love for you to take as we begin a conversation about money. I'm just gonna peel back some layers, and I'm gonna force you to think deeply about this over the next few weeks. And that is this: when God is your pursuit, money becomes a gift. When God becomes your pursuit, money is actually a gift. When we pursue God and not money, that's when we begin to see what God blesses us with is actually a gift. And I can use it to bless others, and I can use it to enjoy my life. And don't get this, I don't have to feel guilty about it. When God is your pursuit, money becomes a gift. I think that's what Solomon discovered. Because in verse 24 and 25 of that same chapter, here's what Solomon kind of resolves in this one moment where he's wrestling for meaning. He says this: so I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat and enjoy anything apart from him? In other words, Solomon discovered it wasn't in money, it wasn't in buying stuff. I pursued all this. I tried entertainment, I tried to medicate my soul, I tried to buy everything I could ever imagine, and none of that worked because Solomon realized that you cannot be truly happy in this life apart from God. But a life with God can result in experiencing happiness. And he can give you the ability to enjoy it. It's all of a sudden like money can become a gift in your life. If you think money buys happiness, let's just real quick think about what money doesn't buy. It doesn't buy relationships. You can be broke financially, but actually be incredibly blessed in relationships. It doesn't buy time. I don't care how much money you have. You can't spare and create more time. It doesn't create fulfillment. You can't buy it. Can't buy peace. Can't buy joy. These are things that you can only experience with God in the right place in your life. I'll close with this story. There was a gerontologist named Carl Pillemer. And one of the things that he did in life and what he studied was asking elderly people what they discovered was like lessons learned in life. And he wrote a book based on surveying over 1,000 elderly people about what they got from life. You know, it's like Solomon at the end of your life, you know, asking, what'd you learn? And you know that none of them said, I wish I had made more money in life. None of them did. None of them said, you should pick a career based on the future earning potential. None of them did. None of them said that if I could have bought more stuff, I would have actually been happier in life. None of them said that. There were three things that these people toward the end of their life all consistently said. The 3 things that they learned that I think would bring the most happiness. The quality of your relationships, being part of something bigger than yourself, and the kind of time, the quality time that you can spend with your kids, or can I say it this way, and even your grandchildren. A couple weeks ago, my wife and I had the opportunity, the freedom actually, to be able to take some of our kids and our grandson to Disney. And, he's only, 20 months old? And, people always say, you shouldn't take a kid that young to Disney because they'll never remember it. I get that. I do. I get that. But we were so excited. We were so excited to take Cohen to Disney because he loves Frozen, and he loves Cars, and he loves Mickey and Minnie. And so we were like, I don't care if you can't remember it, I'll remember it, right? And so we went down there and had the greatest time ever. And if I could just tell you, for me personally, in this season of life, can I tell you what brings me the most happiness? It's the smile on his face. That's what brings me the most joy. And I as a grandfather, I want that. That's happiness, right? And I believe that when we get the order right and we honor God and we serve God, that money can be a gift so that you can enjoy it and bring real happiness to life, amen? Come on, why don't you stand with me today? It's gonna be a fun series. I really wanna encourage you to lean in. It's gonna be a little bit different than anything I've done before, but I also think it could maybe bring us some freedom, is to kind of change the way we think about money. Might be one of the most freeing things that we do this year. So if you just bow your heads with me for a moment. Father, I am so grateful that you have preserved truth in Scripture so that we don't have to pursue money hoping it will bring happiness. But God, you show us that you created us to pursue you, and that a life with you is the only real way to experience real happiness here on earth. And I pray, God, even in this moment, maybe for someone in this room watching this online, that God maybe has never put you on the throne, that has never fully surrendered their life to you. God, I pray right now in this moment, maybe by your Spirit, Jesus, that you're inviting them to put Jesus on the throne. Listen, if you're here today and you don't know Jesus in a real, personal, authentic way, if you maybe have been on the peripheral when it comes to faith in God, but even today you just feel something in your spirit that is pulling you. You feel something that is just leading you to God. If you want to experience a full life, I'm just telling you right now, you'll never find it on your own. You'll actually find it by giving it to God. And maybe today, that's your desire. If that's your prayer, I just want to invite you to say something like this with me right where you are. You just say, Jesus, today I give my life to you. Today I surrender it to you. I've been running after my own stuff, but today I realize by your grace that I will never find happiness, fulfillment, peace in this life until I step into a relationship with you. And so today, with all the faith I have, I give my life to you. And I think for all of us, just in a moment of prayer, I think for all of us, the challenge really is where is God? Is God in the right place? When we show up here today, what does it look like for us as an act of worship, for us to give God our affection, for us to give God our love? See, I think the most important thing that we can do in following him is actually pursue him. It's to lean into him. It's to say, God, I want to surrender my life fully to you. I don't want anything like money to distract me, but I give you my worship here today.
Thanks so much for tuning into this message. I hope that it encouraged you and inspired your faith. If God is doing something in your life, would you take a moment and let us know? We want to connect with you and we want to be able to pray for you. All you have to do is shoot us an email to hello@thex.church, or you can always send us a DM on one of our social media platforms. And if you know somebody that would also be encouraged by this very message, why not take a moment and just share it with them right now? And as always, I want to say thank you to every single person who so generously financially supports this ministry so we can continue to get messages like these out to people all over the world. We believe God is building something special and you're a significant part of it. Until next time, have a great day.